You're watching UATV News. My name is Ina Kosinska. Good evening. 7,053 patients per day. Ukraine has a new coronavirus maximum. Most cases were recorded in Kyiv. There's also a sharp increase in the number of infected people in Kharkiv, Odessa, Khmelnytsky and Dnipropetrovsk regions. At the same time, 2,679 recovered, 116 died. Minister of Health of Ukraine, Maxim Stepanov, announced that if the incidence rate continues growing rapidly, there may be a shortage of doctors.
Infectionists, anesthesiologists, laboratory technicians, employees of laboratory centers and simple nurses get the stress, which is difficult to withstand. They are respect-worthy. Don't forget that there is a limit to everything and a limit to our medical system's ability to provide this care. I emphasize that we are limited by the number of beds and we are limited by the number of medical staff.
The European Union convenes an emergency summit due to the coronavirus. They intend to discuss how to improve the epidemic situation. According to the World Health Organization, almost 8.5 million patients with COVID-19 are registered only in Europe. There are already more than 41 million cases in the world since the beginning of the pandemic. Countries are tightening restrictions again.
Spain was the first in the European Union to cross the threshold of 1 million coronavirus infected. Now the country is in the 6th place in the world ranking, after the United States, India, Brazil, Russia and Argentina. More and more settlements are going into strict quarantine to contain the epidemic.
Porque somos un poco menos responsables.
We are less responsible. We like to party, go out and gather with family. We haven't realized the only way to avoid this going worse is social distancing, simple things, such as not gathering with many people and wearing the face mask, even if you meet friends.
This is Poland, which is also among the countries with the highest rates of COVID-19 prevalence. If earlier the lockdown was announced locally, now the Polish government is in favor of imposing restrictions throughout the country. Christmas markets and New Year's festivities are cancelled. We are dealing with a very dangerous phenomenon, with the second wave, and we have to say it openly that we run the risk of the third wave as well. We depend on whether or not a cure or a vaccine for COVID-19 will be invented. France is also resuming strict anti-coronavirus measures. The country records a record number of COVID-19 infections per day, more than 26,000 new cases. All the beds are occupied, 50% by COVID-19 patients and 50% by other patients. Unfortunately, when the weather gets cold, we are expecting a significant increase of a number of patients without COVID-19, coming in for different problems such as chronic disease, cardiac or respiratory failures, viral seasonal disease and flu. Meanwhile, the European Union has reduced the list of safe countries whose citizens are allowed to enter. Due to the worsening epidemic situation, Georgia, Canada and Tunisia were excluded from it. Reported by Roman Smoler, Ksenia Buhay, UATV News.
New negotiations on the situation in Nagorno Karabakh, the part of Azerbaijan occupied by Armenia, will be held with the mediation of the United States. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo plans to meet with the foreign ministers of two countries. The format of the negotiations has not been reported yet.
It's a complicated diplomatic situation, and our view remains, as does the view of nearly every European country, that the right path forward is to cease the conflict, tell them to de-escalate, that every country should stay out, provide no fuel for this conflict, no weapon systems, no support, and it is at that point that a diplomatic solution that would be acceptable to all.
The armed conflict on the border of Armenia and Azerbaijan continues for the fourth week. Twice the parties tried to negotiate a ceasefire, but in the end they accused each other of breaking the truce. The Belarusian opposition was awarded by the Sacharov Prize, the main award of the European Union in the field of human rights, in the amount of 55,000 euros, will be shared by politicians and activists who oppose the Alexander Lukashenko's usurpation of power in Belarus. And they will be awarded in Brussels on December 16th. Details next.
Belarusian opposition leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, writer Svetlana Alexievich, blogger Sergei Tikhanovsky, Founder of the Telegram channels Nechta and Nechta Live, Stepan Putilo, and a number of Belarusians opposing the dictatorial regime of Lukashenko, will receive the prize named after Soviet academician and dissident Andrei Sacharov for freedom of thought. It is a great honor to inform you that the Conference of the Presidents has decided to award the Sakharov Prize for Freedom of Thought to the democratic opposition in Belarus, represented by the Coordination Council and an initiative of brave women. Meanwhile, Sergei Naryshkin, head of the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, has arrived in Minsk to meet with Alexander Lukashenko to personally listen to complaints about the Belarusian opposition. And we do not hide the fact that the situation around us is not easy. I mean the union state of Russia and Belarus. Thank you for the information that you regularly bring to our special services. And in this regard, we have a lot of joint work. We have few friends, let's speak frankly. Everyone is interested in us, Russia and Belarus. Events in Belarus cause concern among Western countries. In an exclusive interview with our channel, the former commander of U.S. forces in Europe, General Ben Hodges, shared his concerns.
Certainly what's happening in Belarus gives me great concern that you have the potential for Russian ground forces coming back into Belarus, sitting right on Ukraine's northern border. This would not be a good development.
Protest actions continue in Minsk. Today, people with disabilities have come to the central square of the city. The participants of the march demanded to release the Belarusian political prisoners and the tribunal for those guilty of human rights violations. Reported by Vadim Kramer, UATV News.
Do you support the legalization of cannabis for medical purposes to reduce pain in critically ill patients? Earlier, President of Ukraine announced a nationwide poll, which will be held on the day of local elections on 25th of October. And this is one of the questions. What is it, medical marijuana, who needs drugs based on it, and what is the foreign experience of legalizing cannabis?
Volodymyr is a pediatric neurologist. Among his patients there are children with severe forms of epilepsy. Hundreds are in need of drugs based on cannabidiol, a substance found in medical cannabis. Each form of epilepsy is a certain lock, and cannabis drugs are one of the keys to the actual form of epilepsy. These drugs have no effect in terms of drug intoxication. They do not cause any dependence for sure. This is not an anticonvulsant that can help with different forms of epilepsy. Parkinson's syndrome, oncology diseases, psoriasis, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and palliative medicine. Now about 2 million people need drugs based on medical cannabis in Ukraine. One of them is Mariana Pirozhok. She has multiple sclerosis. Mariana's life has turned into a constant struggle with pain. Every day her body is shackled with convulsions. Cannabidiol drugs could help.
We have many symptoms, but it affects these 3 symptoms. These are rescue, pain and tremor. About 60 to 90% of patients know the feeling of rescue. This is muscle stiffness, their tightness, problems with flexion and extension of the limbs and pain that is during this process. Therefore, medical cannabis usually acts as a muscle relaxant and can help overcome this spasticity.
There are many drugs that contain medical cannabis: tablets, ointments, drops, patches, oils, and other forms of cannabis use aimed at suppressing severe pain. Cannabis is researched, cultivated, and successfully used in medicine in the USA, Canada, Germany, Great Britain, Israel, and Poland.
Israel is in the first place in this matter because since the 90s, medical cannabis has been extensively studied, grown, and used to create drugs and other products.
In Ukraine, the law on the legalization of medical marijuana has not been adopted. Drugs based on cannabidiol are banned, and patients desperate to use them become criminals.
Every day, more and more people are diagnosed with cancer in Ukrainian families, and it is cannabis that it is indicated to reduce the effect of chemotherapy and to improve the living standards of cancer patients as well as those in need of palliative care.
On Sunday, Ukrainians will be able to give an answer to one of the points of the survey initiated by the president: whether the legalization of medical cannabis is necessary. In addition, members of parliament, together with representatives of public organizations, have developed a bill that will regulate the circulation of these drugs. Reported by Vadim Kramer, UATV News.
3 new stars lit up today at the Star Square in Kyiv. All of them are dedicated to Ukrainian athletes, bronze medalists of the Olympic Games of different years. Our correspondent will tell you about the outstanding Ukrainian sportsmen.
Ilya Kvasha is the first to open his star. At the 2008 Beijing Olympics, he won bronze in jumping for a 3-meter springboard paired with Alexei Prigorov. The multiple medalist of the World and European Championships, the 9-time champion of the continent, has completed his sports career and is now working as a coach. I have devoted more than 20 years to sports diving and now I am immortalized here. It's very cool, you feel like probably Hollywood star feel, who have their stars on the Walk of Fame in Los Angeles. The athlete with the appearance of a fashion model Olga Saladukha is a bronze medalist of 2012 Olympic Games in triple jump. 37 years old Olga successfully combines preparations for the Olympic Games in Tokyo with work in parliament. She shares the first political victory.
In sports, you fight for medals. Here, you fight for your law to be recognized, for respect, for being voted on. And thank God, here we had victory. Not an easy victory, but there was a victory. The law about state utilities, about the lease of state property, it was supported by 316 deputies. So I think this is the first victory.
The biggest portion of audience attention was received by the football star of the 70s-80s Leonid Buryak. The midfielder of Kyiv Dynamo was called the genius of the pass and standards. He says he would like to share his star with the teammates. It was very difficult for us. We had to go to Moscow, beat 4 or 5 clubs there, Dynamo, CSKA, became champions, assert ourselves. This is the same situation as now. Then it was a little more talented. There was a purposeful generation. Now there are already 55 stars dedicated to the legendary Ukrainians on a Walk of Fame. Soon the organizers promise a new replenishment. Reported by Roman Smoler, Olena Diduch, UATV News.
That's all for this hour. More updates on our official website, Facebook, Twitter and YouTube pages. Stay safe and good night.